Hey, what's up? Welcome back to Project Freelance. My name is Kay Anagonio, and I am your host here on this podcast all about freelancing. Every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I bring you a new episode with a different guest from a different freelancing industry, whether they are a musician, whether they are a fire breather, whether they swallow swords, or they might be a videographer, audio engineer, touring crew member. I have all kinds of different people on this podcast, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. I hope you're liking the podcast, but I do have to plug my second podcast, which is called No Tracers. It is all about urban exploring. I like to explore abandoned places when I'm not freelancing. So if you guys are interested in that kind of stuff, in that topic, definitely check out No Tracers. I'll put some links down below. But on this episode of Project Freelance, I am talking with my friend Mar. He is a videographer based out of Orange County, California, and we met through mutual friends. And I am super excited to have him on this podcast to share what he does on a local level, building a local clientele. It's something super amazing and super cool. And I've wanted to grow my roots here as a local videographer myself, especially as a certified drone pilot. So in this episode, I talked to Mar a lot about working on a local level in your town. So let's jump into this podcast. If you guys like it at any point in time, please leave a rating and feedback. It helps the podcast reach a broader audience, and it helps us grow on the iTunes and Spotify charts. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Mar, can you please introduce yourself and what it is you do to the Project Freelance audience?
My name's Mar, and I create video content for personal brands, specifically in Orange County, but I've done other counties before. And I started a video content media agency, and that's kind of what my main focus is, along with still creating content for personal brands.
So take me back to when you first got started with video. When did you first pick up a camera?
So when I guess I'll go a little further than that. I was a huge creative person. So, completely artsy person, from pencil, paint, graffiti, very content, that type of person. Went to school, and in school, there was just so many other mediums that I had to learn. And that was my first introduction into photography, which then led to potentially recording a small short film, which then led me to eventually picking up a camera. I got very interested in it when a good friend of mine named Robin, super hippie dude, me and him would travel in his electric car all over the place, and he was always dancing. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna save up money, I'm gonna buy a camera, and I'm just gonna film our lives. And it wasn't even to a point where I filmed both of us. I was mainly focused on filming him and what he was trying to do. So I would always film him do these dances, him meeting people, him taking photos, and then and that's basically, I don't know, what, 8 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So fast forward to where you started your business side of things. How long did it take for you to, first of all, find your worth when it came to video content?
I like how you emphasize the worth. Yeah. So is it okay if I throw in my IG handle?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
So my IG handle is worth_Mar. And my entire life, because I was always this artsy person, I always try to align myself with finding jobs or work that I could create, whether that's graphic design or drawing. I just wanted to do that. And in working for companies and places and just helping people, I always noticed that there was an undervalue, they always undervalued the creative. We're the ones that are always making the prints, the magazines, the copy, the words. There's a very creative mind behind it that has to bring this into life. And then at least for me, I was always undervalued. So then I had a handle named Mar Creatives for a long time. And then I kind of changed my name to Worth_Mar, which to me symbolizes like Mar, as a creative, you need to value yourself. You need to value your worth. It doesn't matter what circumstance or what kind of thing you've gone through, but like start valuing yourself. So that's why Worth_Mar is like my IG handle. So um, I, I think when you're starting a business or when you're like first growing, there's not a lot of guidance. So you kind of seek guidance, whether that's books or YouTube or help from friends. But that's kind of, I think, when you're first starting off, very surface level. And it's not when you, at least for me, it wasn't until I like, okay, I want to find someone that's like truly that understands my worth, my value. And I was in putting out so much content, I somehow aligned with somebody that was like, hey, I see the potential in what you do. I would really love to work with you. And then for some reason, something in my life, like in my head clicked where, okay, this person sees something, they said this, I'm going to just give them the number that I want. And they're like, hey, so this is the plan that I want to do. This is what I want to create with the things that you're doing with video. How much would that cost? And I just shot out a number. At the first number that came to my mind, I was like $800. And to me, like, I'm not going to front, like 5 years ago, that was a lot to me. Like trying to make it as a freelancer to do this one gig at $800 was like a lot to me. I was like, okay, cool. Not a lot of people. I'm like, I can not, in my head, I can knock this project out within this amount of time. So I think that's a fair share as long as they're able to work with me on a monthly basis. So I committed to them and I said, hey, you know what? I would love to film you every month for 4 videos at $800 a month. And that's kind of where my business idea started coming from. Was I saw this trend happening that Amazon and a lot of other companies were going in this membership direction. So I was like, why can't there be a membership for videographers? Why can't there be a membership for videos? And also around that time, even a little bit before that, I would watch a lot of like Gary Vee content. And I'm like, hey, you know what? This guy's following this guy and he's like working for him. Like, well, I want to do that, but I don't want to necessarily work for some one person. Maybe I could work for like 15 people or 20 people. And that's kind of how I was doing the math in my head. I'm like, if I was able to work for 20 people at $800, that's a lot of money. So that's kind of how I like started doing, started working. I guess fast forward a little further, I realized, wait a minute, there's people out there that don't necessarily pay you for the time that you kind of do. They kind of pay you for the value they see your content. So that even gave me more meaning to what my videos were. So this specific client was able to go from 6 figures to 7 figures with all the amount of content that we were able to produce. So that was just like one element of seeing how powerful it was for this person to have my videos. It wasn't, yeah. So it wasn't later until I started realizing, until I started actually gaining feedback from people that I did this for, where they were like, hey, you know what? I really love that you do this. I really love that you sit down with me and we actually strategize. And I love the perspective you give me based around my audience, based around how I am. And I really love how you highlight me. And I give you very little direction and you just somehow know how to do it. And to me, I didn't know that was like a very powerful thing, like I just didn't understand it. Now fast forward to where I am now, I understand that there's just individuals out there that have such a high level of expertise and understanding for certain brands and companies that they know how to properly charge them, because to them, like, it's very valuable. Whatever the creative decides to charge a giant company, the creative understands that, hey, I'm going to stick to this because I understand that this is very important to you. And obviously, that type of creative, that's probably been doing it for a long time, has just developed a career and has found their voice and their niche and has developed their brand, so they're able to charge that level of a price. So that's I hope I didn't bounce too much around. I know I didn't want to like overly explain, but that's kind of the synopsis of what occurred.
No, that's great. That's exactly what I wanted. I think it's interesting the way you went about finding that like rate that you charge. A lot of people go with their rate because like that's what the industry standard is, like 250 a video or 500 a video or whatever it is, but you took it a different way. And I think that's super interesting that you decided, no, they're hiring me because of the value of my work. It's not necessarily the amount of time it's going to take me. So I think that's an interesting way to look at it.
Correct.
And then, tell me about, what, like, when you were building your business and everything, how did you first start finding clients locally? Because for me, when I first moved to California, I didn't know anybody, right? I had to build this whole business thing from the ground up. I didn't have any connections here. And as a live music photographer, I thought to myself, well, what do I need to do to put myself in a position to shoot live music? I should move down the street from a concert venue and start going to the shows and start shooting the shows. So that's how I started building my business that way. For you, how did you find your initial clients? Like what was that process like for you?
Well, first, that's actually what you just did. That's like what you just did, like what you had to do. That's a lot of creatives don't take that initial initiative, like to understand that, like, you have no idea that you're like, okay, in order for me to do this thing that I love, I need to surround myself with this thing, So you got as close to the vicinity to that area. You didn't know potentially what was going to happen from that, but you're just like, I know that my gut says, okay, if I want to create content for this music industry, I need to get close to it, for me, it was like, I wanted to live comfortably and support my family. And in supporting the family, it meant like mom's going to get sick and I have to have some type of money to take care of her, or I'm going to get married and I need to have income to afford that. I need to have a house, or I would love to have something that belongs to me and that is potentially profitable for me. Right. So those are kind of like, as a Hispanic person and growing up in this creative world, knowing that we got a limited lifespan was like in my head. Like typically, like 10 years ago, I would be like, oh, I just want to have like, all these paints and markers and graffiti cans behind me. And I just always want to draw. But then as I got older, I just realized like I need to live 10, 50 years down the line. So I started kind of like trying to find people that were living this kind of way. And in my head, when I was watching Gary Vee, I didn't look at him for like this motivational person. I looked at him like, okay, he's an entrepreneur that took some type of income and invested it into a thing that made him more money. So he was able to take money and make more money. And I'm like, now he has more money. So I'm like, okay, well, where can I find more people that do that are living okay? Well, for a long time, I just put out content. I put out anything, interview stuff, documentary type stuff, music video stuff. And then during the time of live stream coming out, there was a person that reached out to me from Australia that I built a relationship online to eventually work together, to partner up together. And then when they finally met me, they're like, hey, you know what? I would really love to film all these entrepreneurs based off this style that you have over here, I would really love to film all these entrepreneurs. And I want you to display my life filming all these entrepreneurs. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll do that. And in doing that, one of her interviews, there was a person that lived locally to me, that lived in an area that I had no idea was what I was looking for, which was Newport. And eventually she's like, hey, you know what? This is my videographer. If you ever need this person, they live locally to you, and you know, you're more than welcome to like hit him up. And that relationship took like 3 months to happen, but eventually that happened. And doing so, I started learning about just a different level of thinking of like how this individual that was also creative went from like $0 to charging for weddings like 10 grand per wedding.
Wow.
to take photos.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Like in my head, I'm like, how's that even, like, I didn't know that existed. So that's what really like elevated my thinking of like, okay, there's people out here that really know their worth, know their value, you know? And then obviously I just had the serendipity, like luck just hit me, where I aligned myself with another creative that was just giving me guidance on top of she was paying me to film her. So I'm like getting paid to learn from her, and I'm doing what I've always done, is make cool videos. Like that's it. That's all it was in my head, you know? So through her, obviously there's just been a lot of coaching, and sometimes it's not even like, hey, can you coach me? It was literally like, hey, that's cool, but maybe try this. And I would be like, okay, why should I try that? And then they would give me the proper feedback. So then she became my big fish, as I kind of I considered it. It's like, if I treat this one big fish correctly and I do everything that I can for this one big fish at $800 a pop, like, I'm hoping that this will lead to good. That's all I had in my head. Like, I was like, okay, I'm going to go super customer service oriented. Like, what would Amazon do right now? You know, like that's all I would be thinking. And I'd bend over backwards. Like, I would flip her videos in one day. I would like, hey, is there anything you want me to tweak? And then that led to, hey, you know, I have another client that wants this potential thing. So I would then help a friend of hers. And then in helping that friend, another company from afar was like, hey, I like what you're doing with those two people. Can you do it for me? And then that's kind of how it's kind of been happening for the past, 5 years now. So it was like, how can I serve one person with my ultimate like self, and in hopes that they're gonna, do their best to like make me look good,
Yeah.
And that's, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, how long did it take from you just doing like a job here and there to doing it full time without having like any other part-time jobs or anything like that?
I think I quit my job, 2016. So my last job, as I was still filming her, like I quit my job in 2016. So 4 years, I have been doing this, but prior to that, I was working. I was still doing this. I was doing music videos. I was doing graphic design. I was doing anything creative to not always work full time. Like I would tell my bosses, I was like, hey, you know what? Can I just work 3 days a week? And then I would just save up for a car. And like before that, I was like hitching rides with my friends, paying them, paying for gear, like doing what I could just to like creatively live, But in the process, in the past, 4 years, the process of how I decided to like up level myself was like, it went from charging $800 to charging $1,000 to charging $3,000. Like it was just high jumps from there, because I finally understood the value. And I also like read, there's so many things that I've read and so many other content that I consume that just pull the trigger. Like if they say no, like ask why. like or if they say no, then there's someone else out there that will say yes. Like those are certain things that like kind of stuck in my head that I just filled my mind that like, you know what, I want to live at $10,000 a month. How can I do that with only 5 clients? How can I do that with only 4 clients? Like, and I don't want to be all like woo woo about it when they're like, you attract what you really ultimately want. But that's kind of what happened. Like I really did put my efforts in trying to attract high level clients that don't even worry about the income, but they worry more about the content that they're given. And they value that way. And they value that and me as an individual far more than the amount of income that they're going to invest. So, and then things like that, like I had to tell myself multiple times that, oh, it's not money, it's an investment. So when I'm like even communicating what I have to offer to clients, I always make it sound like, hey, look, this is a long-term investment. It's not like I make you one video and you become popular. That's not how it works, And like, obviously other things took into place, like my confidence got better. I just started understanding that type of vernacular. Like when a creative decides to go all in into the industry that they really want to be in, you have to learn all the words and what that lingo is. So that way, when you do finally, for example, like for yourself, like you want to learn, is it the producer that you want to speak to, or is it the musician that you want to speak to, or is it the the sales,
like the booking agent,
person that's the booking agent. Like you need to know who's the one that's pulling a majority of the strings, because then when you can sit down with them and say, hey, you know what, based off this one image that I'm going to take of you, you could use it on your website, you could use it on social media, you could use it in a magazine. Oh, if you're going to sell it to Sony, there's some rights that there's some legal rights that you have to have in order to make some type of residual income off that, because of the artist that you are, So like there's a lot of legalities and a lot of discussion that you could, as a creative, learn to know your worth, your value, like some people, I can't, at this moment in time, I can't think of an example, but we see social media content when a photo goes viral, right? And it gets published or something, but little did that creative know that it was going to be like that, So if he or she would have set herself up in place to like, they have a publisher or a publishing agent or something in the back end. So anytime their content gets released, their agent or their publisher goes to them and like, hey, you know what, if you're going to publish that, then XYZ, there's these little things that we could do as creatives to up level not only ourselves, but like our true worth. Is there anything, because I don't know about your audience, and like, is there anything that I can, I guess, say or do? Because like, I don't mind shooting the shit, and definitely want to give some applicable stuff, but I don't know what's applicable to the people that listen.
Gotcha. So the audience is all different types of people. We have photographers on here, wedding photographers. We have entrepreneurs. We have people that make mobile game apps. We have people that listen to live music, because my guests on this show are anybody that freelances or any type of entrepreneur. So like last week I had a future astronaut, like an astronaut in training / pilot on the podcast. I've had rocket photographers, I've had musicians, all kinds of different people on here. So it's a wide variety of different types of people that listen to this, but I'm sure the people that are going to listen to this episode are more videographers and more photographers. So we can definitely keep it in that realm. But yeah, it's mostly like how you built your business, tips for building their own business, things like that. So yeah.
Cool. I just wanted to make sure, because I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm too uptight and like, I don't want to sound like, I don't know, too like, I always get frustrated when I hear things and it's not applicable. Like there's no like, when people like, yeah, you have to have good mindset. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean?
Right.
Like, you don't understand that I have a light bill to pay and that
Exactly.
my dad's in the hospital or whatever,
Yeah.
like, how am I supposed to develop a mindset, So that's where I've come from. I've listened to so many of these like, gurus, motivational speakers, and I'm always digging further of like, okay, cool. Like if you really want to start a business, just go pull the trigger. First, just pull the trigger, like whatever it is. You want to draw for a living? Okay, go draw 100 drawings for
Exactly.
people of all types. You know what I mean? So like, yeah. So the more specific I could get, then awesome.
Perfect. Yeah. So I definitely wanted to, talk about rates and stuff. I think that's super important for people out here. If you were somebody just starting out and you like literally just picked up a camera, just trying to get a little bit of money, like where would you start? Like, would you go online? Like for me, I use Upwork. I get like 40% of my work from Upwork.com, and I have for the past like 5 years, so that's my advice for people would be like, look on sites like Upwork, look on like Indeed.com. There are video jobs out there all the time that are entry level. But what about for you?
Yes. I wasn't a person that was like super internet savvy when I was kind of like first starting. I know that it's been out for a minute, but like I just wasn't good at. Now I'm like, oh, dude, I can't. Like I love my computer and I love going on the internet. But yeah, definitely if you understand Upwork, if you understand Bark, Thumbtack. Those are all like places where they host the platform for freelancers. In Thumbtack or Bark, they have a section where it's like the videographer section. And if you want to try mine, hopefully, I mean, that's kind of where I'm gearing to. It's thevidproject.com. But like any depends also on the creative, like what you did. You wanted to be in the music industry. You're not going to, it's very hard for you to go onto Upwork and just type in
Yeah.
music industry. You know what I mean? Like that's the tough part. So I did Craigslist. I was like on Craigslist. I searched Craigslist. I was on Instagram. I was on Facebook. I was putting out content. I did free work that aligned with what I liked all the time. So, at the time, I think a lot of videographers just go through this like music video stage. And you're like, you fall in love with the direction and being able to come with the theatrics and the lights. And then sometimes you kind of wish you could do further, but then when you research on what it would take, it's like, oh man, that's just requires a lot of a budget. And then some of the people that when we first start off don't have that budget. So, but if that's your goal, like if you're like, you just picked up the camera and you want to go shoot music videos, go find a musician that you potentially like, and then just offer them free content. I'm not talking like Eminem type musician. I'm talking
unless
like,
you know Eminem.
Unless you know
unless
Eminem,
he's like
exactly.
your cousin or something.
Exactly. But like if he's got like 2,000 followers or even if he's got like 500 followers or she's got 500 followers, but she just has this gift or he has this gift that you're like, I see it. I want everybody else to see it. I'm going to go do it. It's going to be grunt work for sure. But, or you're like, hey, I need to put a little bit of money in my pocket, and I like coffee. So like, there's a lot of these coffee places. So why can't I just go like offer a video to a coffee place and be like, hey, you know what? Can I shoot a little small commercial for your Instagram or maybe your email list that you could use? And then, build that relationship. Hey, I'll do it for $100. I'll do it for $50. I'll do it for a coffee for a week. Whatever, and then that's one form of just gaining practice. And on the other end, maybe you have a friend that's always doing funny, crazy jokes or crazy things. And you're like, dude, you should start a YouTube channel. Like let me film, like, I'll be your videographer for your YouTube channel, and then get comfortable with practicing. Right? Because being comfortable with practicing only produces confidence. And that confidence then produces like you go asking someone, hey, based off, you reaching out to me or me reaching out to you, blah, 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 blah. like I would love to do this video for you and it'll be $500. And maybe that's a little like you're gonna, as a creative, some people get very uncomfortable with high numbers. Like it just happens. It's just, you just got to get, that's the motto that I kind of like, pulling the trigger, because you got to hear the yes or no and understand why. Like I would shoot the number that you want to shoot. Now keep in mind that person that you're going to suggest this to eventually is going to look at everything else that you've built. And they're going to also look at, does that align with what I want? You know, unless they truly see something in you, they may or may not look at your content and go, that's for me. Now, to combat that, what you would love to do is make sure whatever you're trying to do in the future, that the content you put out is kind of speaking to the individual that you potentially want to work for. You know, so that may mean that your all your platforms, your website, or at least things that people could go onto could clearly see, once I like look at your stuff, oh, that is what they do. They do that thing. And I would love to have that thing for me. You know what I mean? I hope that made sense. But yeah, when you're first starting off, heavy practice, and then simultaneously put your own content out there that aligns with your future prospect. So that's big.
Yeah, that's huge. And so it kind of brings me to what I'm working on now. So I do music as well. My audience knows that, and I'm sure you know that as well. And I haven't toured with my own band since 2014. Like, I just haven't had time, because in 2014, I moved from Australia, where I had a band, to California, where I didn't know anybody. And I still wanted to do music, but I didn't know anybody out here. So I just started making music with another guy that is a writer. So I did everything with me and him, didn't play shows. So I have a project called Chasing Satellites. I've never played a show with it. I just put out an EP under Kay and Agonio. I don't even have a full band yet. You know what I mean? But I just joined a hardcore band out of LA that's already put together, that was looking for a vocalist. So now I'm in a position where I can play shows again and start making more money with music, which is awesome. And through that, as a videographer, I can pitch myself to the other bands to film their content while I'm at the show performing. Why not? Get off stage, film the next 3 bands. Done. Make some money.
You're a true entrepreneur. Like, you know what you want to do, you know? Yeah. Like, you're trying to make the best in one situation, everything to fit what you like.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I totally get it. There was a book that I just read called Peak, and they talk about make sure that you just get a good amount of rest, because you are like a creative that I see the work that you put into a lot of your stuff. And, you know, sure, maybe it's just putting the camera inside the room and then you're just doing one take and then you're going to do the edit. But you're so used to doing it yourself that you don't know how tough it is for so many other individuals to do that. Like, I guess I'm just trying to be careful with the burnout of that. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Because I've experienced that, where you're just working so hard and then you still have to come home and then produce your own stuff, because that's really ultimately you want. But then you're like, damn, I'm just so exhausted. But like, you're on the right trajectory. I've seen your stuff. I see your TikTok. I see your Instagram. I'm like, holy crap, like, you're definitely in the right space. And if your gut is saying that's the right move for you, when you go and perform, and then you're like also wanting to collaborate / film the other artist, then so be it. I mean, who knows where that's going to lead you to? Who knows if one of those people eventually stop working with their band and they're like, hey, you know what? Like, can I just be your manager? Like, I'll do everything I can because I believe in your musician skills. You know what I mean? So like, that's like the what is it? Opportunity meets preparation, or is it? Preparation meets opportunity. There you go.
Amazing.
So.
Who is that book by? Peak.
Let me see. Let me double check. It's in my Audible.
This episode's fun. No, I'm just kidding. I wish.
Yeah, no, it's like, I'm me as a creative, like I'm barely now getting used to like, yeah, you have to just do so many, you wear so many hats, man. Oops, sorry. Let's see here. It's by Brad Stolberg. Peak Performance. It's called Elevate Your Game, Avoid Burnout, and Thrive with the New Science of Success.
Love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I need to read that. I've also experienced burnout before. I did 1,000 daily vlogs in a row, consecutively, and I was also on tour with a band, working for the band, selling merch and doing video and photo, and I was vlogging every day. And I got off tour, literally the day I got off tour, I set my camera up in my living room and I turned it on and I said, guys, I can't do this anymore.
Oh.
I can't. I was so exhausted, dude. And I got home and I was like, nope, I can't do daily vlogs anymore. This is crazy. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy. The cool part is you went through it though.
Yeah.
Like 1,000 vlogs that's a lot.
It was crazy. It was absolutely insane.
That's a lot.
I was trying to pass my friend's Guinness World Record, but they've since retired it. He vlogged every day for 10 years. He also played bass in a touring band called We the Kings. And he also went through brain surgery and filmed his own brain surgery. So, I mean...
Why did he go through brain surgery?
He had a tumor in his brain. So he had to get...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was...
Probably from the 1,000 vlogs, man.
Yeah.
Dude. Or more
than that. Like, yeah. 10 years.
Seriously, you put your brain, your mind, your whole body through that. That's what that book talks about. Like a lot of individuals, like top performers, what they've done is they're able to put their body and their mind through so much stress, but the hard work is actually the rest. Like actually being able to take a break for a day or 2 days or 3 days, sometimes a week. You need that. Your body and your mind require that. Like throughout that entire book, it's like, yeah, you and I are like, I don't want to say workaholics, but we're in an era where we have, as creatives, we have developed this like go in order to stay in the know. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But the hard work is relaxing, is sitting down and having the conversation with yourself in your own head with nothing to distract you, like relaxing your entire body. Like it's weird when you hear about these meditative practices and all this other stuff, but truly it's not the actual concept of the term meditation that's weird. It's like what you need to understand is you're just giving yourself your alone time. You're like, your brain needs you to like slow down, you know? So that's also a part reason why what I wanted to do is like, how can I achieve a high number a month, but not burn out each month? How can I do a little in what I deem as a little, even though it's a lot, but at the same time, not burn out, you know? And there's other people out there that they just know how to make 6 figures a month and then delegate their entire things to their team that they've developed. So that's a new level of perspective that I've understood, that I need to have a team underneath me. So maybe eventually with all the content that you are producing, you're going to align yourself with the right creatives that'll help you go, hey, you know what? Let me be the one to strip the audio off your podcast once it's done and I'll put it up. And then your other friend will be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to listen to your entire podcast and I'm going to write a blog about it so that I'll put it up on your website. And then you have your other friend that's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I, set up the camera so that way once you're done filming it, cool, I'm just going to make a quick little 1-minute teaser. So you're not the one doing all those things all the time. You know, obviously you have to like have such a high level of creativity to convince the people and nurture the people around you to say, hey, you know what? I'm here for you guys. I believe in this and this is what's going to occur. But if you stick by me, then boom, we're going to go somewhere. But obviously that's like, there's level to this shit. Like I'm not going to front, you know?
It's like you talking about all that stuff is like my dream, you know, to have a team that can help like create this content, you know? I love the idea of having a team around you, and I think a strong support system is extremely important, especially if you are an entrepreneur or a freelancer. I think that you need that team around you. And as a musician, I'm slowly building my team around me, and it's like, it's such a nice feeling to have that support, you know, and it was never there before. And so once you finally get that, I think people need to realize, like, for those freelancers out there that are just hearing this for the first time, like, build a team around you, because you need, it's not like your friends. It's like, it's hard to explain it. It's like almost like work colleagues, but you know, it's hard to explain, but I get what you're saying.
No, totally. Yeah, your support system, they're like-minded like you.
Exactly.
You know, they'll tell you the real stuff. Like, hey, you know what? Your last video didn't do so good, and you've learned to not hate them, or like, don't tell me my video didn't do good. No, they care for you. They're nurturing they're alongside you. They're partners, you know, with you. So yeah, if you are early as a freelancer or as a creative, and it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be a friend. It's great that they're friends, but there's going to be bumps in the head sometimes, but that's important. Like, you have to understand that if it's for the team, that all your entire team has one initial goal, you know, and it may, like, for example, as a musician, one initial goal could potentially be like, hey, we want to be number one on this billboard or whatever. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, we need to make $1 billion and sing next to blah blah blah. No, it's just like, hey, let's just get our number on this chart, or let's sell 1,000 tickets, or like let's like sell out a bar, whatever the case is, you know. Just like, if everybody's moving towards that one initial goal, then yeah, it's cool. And to build a team, like, I'm reading a book called Decoding Culture. I think it's called Decoding Culture. But like, they talk about having like these principles when you're on your website or somewhere, where like, if anybody comes across it, that you have this fundamental principle of what they're getting into when they first meet or trying to join your team. You know, like, we are dependable, we are honest, we are, you know, hardcore screamers, you know, like, whatever it is. Like, they understand that by reading that, they're like, okay, like, I gotta be that, you know. And it definitely like weeds out the people that don't need to be around you.
So let's talk about the Vid project a little bit more. I want to know what made you want to create it, what it is, and how people can get involved.
So I initially wanted to create it because I just wanted, like, I've seen a lot of agencies popping around, and I've always noticed that there's a process that happens in agency. There's a creative director, there's a blogger, there's a writer, there's a content producer, there's like all these people. And me, myself as a creative, I just wanted to truly surround myself with other like-minded creative individuals. Well, in doing so, like, in that was the initial idea. I was like, I want to have this Orange County #1 creative video agency. And researching it, I've led that there's over 14,000 agencies with video, in like California alone. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, well, what else can I mean, though, what am I doing that's different? And then as I'm doing my research, like, I didn't come across a lot of personal branding stuff. So personal branding, the term is basically like there's a specific individual that's kind of like the main person in the forefront, talking about the content. For example, your brand, you're the personal brand, and underneath you might be building you know, the next level microphone, or the next outfit to wear during tours, or whatever. Like, but you are the one that's talking about it, so people are going to believe in your influence before they listen to anyone else. So you become the personal brand. So I decided, like, I only want to film personal brands. I want to film people that are starting their business, but they're willing to put themselves out in front of the camera, always talking about their business, always sharing valuable content. So as I was like creating things, I was like, okay, Vid Project's going to only focus on personal brands. We're only going to try to do this. Well, I came across a coach. He's a good friend of mine that I met in high school, but we came together, like, we met again, only like a couple years ago. And then he's been coaching me out through this whole process. And it wasn't until recently where I actually made another pivot in the idea of what I want Vid Project to be. So currently where it's going is it's going to be a directory for any videographer to be found. And I'm going to do, at this time and place, since it's still small, I'm going to do my best to align the videographer or the creative to the right company. And in doing so, I feel like the creative will be happy and the customer will be happy. So right now, I've changed it from just becoming a small little agency to becoming a directory. It's going to be any videographer. Doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter what type of content you produce. If I got tired of going onto Google and typing in videographer. Like I just got tired of doing that. And I get sick and tired of like seeing videographer next to a fitness trainer or a videographer next to like a wedding. Like, well, wedding videographer is the same thing, but like there's a website called Thumbtack and there's a website called Bark, but there's multiple freelancers or multiple businesses within that platform. I wanted just the only video. People that specialize in drones, people that specialize in music videos, people that specialize in personal brands, people that specialize in YouTube videos, advertising videos, commercial videos. So that's my next goal, is to make it just a directory. Currently, I have about 6 people, including myself, on there, all in Orange County. And I'm going to send you the link if you decide to also want to put your info in there as a music videos, or even drones, because I think you mentioned something on your Instagram about drones. Yep. So drone specialist. So that way it just makes it easier for the client. So when they go on there and they're in their head, they're like, I want a YouTube video. They could literally just type in YouTube, and then these people that all categorize themselves as YouTube video makers or YouTube producer, whatever the title will become, that it's easier to be found. On top of that, it's like if you're in Arizona, okay, we have a person in Arizona. Or if you're in Florida, we have a person in Florida. Obviously, at this time and place, it's only been in California because I'm small. I'm barely starting, So, but the goal is to go global. My first goal is to get 1,000 videographers in there. I want each videographer eventually to make income off of that, where if they put on their own course, then they get a income based off their course. And it could be something simple, you know what I mean? So like I would film you, I would do the entire thing, and then obviously there'd be a percentage that's discussed, but like, hey, you don't have to do any of the filming. I just help you with this entire thing. But anybody that decides to either take the course or hire you could do it within that one platform. I mean, there's a lot of small iterations, and it's not even close to that. Right now, it's just becoming a directory and my personal, you can hire us kind of a thing. But the goal is to make it so any videographer, any person that's starting within video could potentially be found and align themselves with the person that they want to work with.
Can I just say, as a videographer, thank you for creating something like that. Like, we need more things like that. You know what I mean? Like, I appreciate how much you're willing to put into it, like personally, like saying like, I'll help you film the course, like all that kind of stuff. Like that's huge, and I personally have wanted to do a video course and I have nobody to film it. So like hearing you say that, it like inspires me, to jump back into doing something like that. And then what's up?
No, I was going to say, like that's a huge thing. Like I want the creative to be the creative. Like I want people to understand how to do their taxes, how to, write surveys for their client, how to be the best customer service. Like there's, how when you go to Upwork, there's always like, this person's like certified, like I want to have the similar thing where like, hey, you know what? Kay is completely certified. She'll do you right. She's the Nordstroms of our shit. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't know how to, me, myself, I'm transparent and I'm saying like, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but that's the goal. It's like, okay, I need to do these little small things.
I dig that. I think it's, like I said, I think it's an amazing thing what you're doing. And, I'm super grateful to know you and have been able to meet you and, collaborate and do some stuff. And I'm looking forward to like getting to work with you and more over the next couple, months after things settle down here a little bit. But my next question for you is, and some freelancers I have on the podcast get a little uncomfortable with this question. So if you don't like it, we can skip it. But
okay.
So stories of times you've been screwed over.
Okay. I think I guess it depends, but I'll tell you one that I kind of remember, and that's just my regular job. Like my old job, I used to do photography and I was getting paid $11 an hour.
Yeah.
And the photographer prior to that was like an experienced photographer. They knew lighting, they knew Photoshop 100%, and they were still getting paid the same rate I was.
Wow.
On top of that, they kept the office very messy. So I went in there and like in my head, I'm like, if I prove myself, I'm going to like, they're going to give me a raise. They're going to like buy me my own camera. They're going to set me up. Well, I busted my ass for them. I cleaned it up. I went from them shooting like 5 photos a day to shooting over 130 a day. Wow. Like setting up their system to work flawlessly. Like we do this day, we do this the next day, and this is how we clean it every day, whatever, But at the end of the day, I quit. I got tired of that place. That place almost made me burn out, and I still left with the same pay. You know what I mean? So that was like a version of being screwed over.
Yeah.
I've been like fired from a graphic design company. I used to like create tobacco like boxes for this company called Fantasia. And like one day, I think the boss was like on a bad one, like he was on his man period or something. And he was like, hey, I need you to stay in and create this thing. And I already told my personal boss, like my graphic design boss, like, hey, I have to go because I have something to attend to. Well, I left. And the following day, he was just so upset. He's like, hey, yeah, we're just going to let you go. I'm like, what? Dude, I finished a majority of the things and I've done XYZ for your company. And he's like, yeah, but he had it in for me. He didn't like who I was as an individual, because I was always like the guy that could get along with everybody,
right?
And he was like an older gentleman I don't want to get into like super political, but there was just certain things that he did as a man there versus like what's like someone like myself would come in there and do.
Gotcha.
So I think I just rubbed him the wrong way, and he was just like, yo, yeah, we're going to let you go. So things like that. I've been fired in multiple occasions with similar scenarios because I've always just gone above and beyond and try to prove myself. And like low or high key, I read the book, Robert Greene, the book Power, and just the first couple of like chapters on how they talk about power is like I think as a creative, we're always trying to come up in society. So it doesn't necessarily mean we're trying to develop power, but I think we're always just trying to continuously get better and come up. Well, in one of the first chapters, it says like, don't bite the hand that feeds you, or don't bite, don't overstep your master. And that's what I've learned that I've done. And so many of the things that I used to do is like, I would enter this realm where there's a master, and then I try to prove myself. And in the book, it pretty much says like, sometimes when you're trying to prove yourself so much and you create this thing, you make the master look stupid. So then the master will let you go. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how it's occurred in my life. Like I don't know. I've just been uniquely overly observant, and I've always been like a forward thinker. So anytime I try to do things, I would always go above and beyond. So I think that's why the career field of actually working for somebody hasn't worked for me. That's what led me to this. It's like I've been what is it? People have abused so much of my gift working for them, and I'm building their lives, that they decided to shit on me. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's that. So those are those scenarios. I don't think, I can't remember off the bat if I've ever had anything like stolen. Usually it's just rude clients
Right.
talking to me, things like that. Like I don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm charging too much, or I could find a better videographer or something like that, things like that. But I've never had someone like rob shit from me.
Gotcha.
Well, not that I can think of at this moment in time.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm glad you don't have one. That's, off right off the top of your head,
Yeah.
So what?
How about you?
Oh yeah, I got quote unquote hired by Hypebeast to shoot for some Hypebeast clothes, and it turned out to be somebody scamming me, and they like sent me some money to pay the models, and then I paid the models through their bank, and then it was just a huge mess, and I lost the money. Like, it was insane. It was super bad. It wasn't Hypebeast, they weren't actually involved. It was somebody posing as them. So it was like this anonymous person that there was no way to like find them. So they just got away with it. And so I made a video about it, telling people, other freelancers, like, hey guys, like, this is something that happens. Like, this is my story. This is what happened to me. Like, I don't want you to fall for this. Make sure you do your research. Like, that's what I learned from that experience,
That's crazy. So they went as far, like, to set themselves up. They set up some type of system in order for you to get. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was.
That's crazy. And they still got the photos, so they still got the content.
No, we didn't even get to the shoot.
Oh.
And it was super early on in my like career, so I like was super naive, and it was like my first time dealing with a situation like that. So I definitely learned from it, and I've heard from other people like, oh my gosh, I almost fell for something similar. Like, thank you for talking about this, So I mean, if anything, like it's helped other people. So yeah.
And I've heard like I remember there's like people that pose as directors, and they're like, hey, we're looking for top models, and we're hosting this thing if we jump on a call, but they end up like being traffickers, things like that.
Yeah.
Like I've heard that type of stuff.
Crazy.
Luckily myself, I've never come across that level of like scammers.
Like, it was sophisticated, dude. Like, we had a contract and everything.
Yeah. And they probably have like certain information of your stuff. You're just like, damn it. Like,
I think all they had was like my address. That was it. Luckily.
Okay.
So we good there, but still it was not a fun situation.
No, I believe it.
And then what inspires you to create? Like, what inspires you?
I think now leaving the legacy behind is like a driving factor. Family, of course, and just like, I guess literally the ability of being able to do it. Like we all wake up those days where we're just jolted with energy and we could produce, and then we wake up with days where we can't, and and there's some days we just want to unplug and do the thing. I think the liberty that we have in doing that, especially where you and I live in like California and the United States, like, that's awesome. But when I read books of like certain people that don't have that ability, or when I read people that have just they've learned how to like become a coach to Google founders, and like they call them like the $1 trillion coach, there's a person that existed like that also inspires me. Like, there's individuals out there that are able to build the thing that they want to build, or they're like propelling themselves forward to build this thing. And like, that excites me. Like, not that I'd knock on wood, like, I'm going to do my best not to pass away early, but like I want to definitely strive the in my own head to be like my own CEO. Like I need to live with my live caring for my family a certain way. I need to live a certain way with my relationship. I need to have like a certain level of faith that I have. I need to have a certain level of finance. Like there's a book that I read, 10x, and I know a lot of people that are listening probably have listened to read that book, but it's called the 10x rule. And in there, he talks about like, there's one thing to be like rich, but like if that's all you're striving for, like what about all the other areas in your life? You have so many other areas, your own body, your own mind, your family, your spiritual realm. And like that too is a driving factor. Like, how can I be the best version of myself? And sometimes I'm not, a majority of the time I'm not successful, but the fact that I could wake up and try again is dope. Like I have a routine that I try to get into. I have a little quote on my desk that says, "Don't be second place Mar." Like to me, I feel like everybody, there's a first place you and there's a second place you. Of course, that second place is last for all you care. Like, but there's always going to be that first place you. What does that first place you look like? Like, are they eating the way that you want to eat right now? Are they driving the thing that you want to drive? Are they flying or taking vacations the way you are taking vacations right now? So there's that first place you. And like, how do you achieve that first place you? And like, what would that first place you be reading? What would that first place you be doing right now? Like that's kind of how I've like made my world now. Like, okay, if I go out with my girlfriend, how can I just love her the best way as a man should love her right now? You know what I mean? Or how can I treat my mom and call my mom or text my mom? Or like, how can I kick it with my friends? How can I create this video that my clients just going to absolutely love? Like, like that's kind of how I programmed my head.
Man, I thank you for talking. Like, thank you. I learn so much from you every time we talk, and I feel like my mind expands every time we have a conversation. It's fantastic.
Appreciate that. That's so dope.
And my last question for you is, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
Okay. Okay. There's so many things, but I think the one that I'm gonna say, because I'm doing it now, is like building this system that you have. So there's something that all creatives eventually get to a point where they wish there was two of themselves. There's three of themselves, or however many people that you would love to have around you. Well, you have to have a system in place. And what that takes is like, you as a creative right now should write down what it takes for you to get from point A to okay, let me break this down. So you're shooting a music video and you've gotten used to shooting it, lighting it, bringing a certain amount of gear. And once you're done with that, you go home, you upload it, or you leave it on the table or whatever. And then in 2 days or a day, you load it into the computer, you look at look at what you filmed, and you're like, I like that, and you start dissecting some of the content. Maybe you stop that day and then a day later you do it again. Well, each one of those steps is a system. Each one of those steps is like a process of your system. So eventually you're going to meet other people that are like, hey, how did you do that thing that you did right there, and how long did it take? And sometimes we get so stuck, like, oh, that took me like a week, that took me like 4 days, that took me like 10 days. Well, eventually if someone's like, hey, can I like work with you, or like, can you teach me? It's a lot easier for you to give them this thing versus you trying to teach them. And I wish I knew that early on, that I documented each one of my steps, because it's not only until now where I'm like writing down and like creating my system of like, okay, from step one, I edit, step two, this, like I'm writing each individual step. So that way when the opportunity comes, I could just hand this over and they could go do it on their own, or I could create it into a video and then it becomes my training manual, So it's like, that's a huge thing. I guess I could touch on a couple of other things like, like learning taxes is super important. Like at least collecting your receipts, or at least finding a good tax agent that'll be your like bookkeeper. That's super important for creatives, because each little thing that you spend is a cost to your business that you're growing, whether it's a memory card, whether it's a battery, whether it's a pencil, whether it's a piece of paper that you had to write down the person's name for a business. That paper costs something, and it would make your books look good when you could tell your tax person, like, yeah, I spent over $50,000 on my business with all the additive things from gas to food to travel to, this paper, this pencil, this marker, my memory cards, the programs that I use, all that stuff counts. You know what I mean? Especially as freelancers now with the new tax laws that are taking place, it's always like, keep in mind, I'm not the best at it myself, but I'm more aware of it now than I was 4 or 5 years ago, for sure. So that's another huge thing. Mastery is something super important. Like as a creative, we don't know that we're constantly doing it like intuitively. We're always trying to just get better. Some people just get comfortable, but there's others that really are like, how can I light this better? What light makes that look good? What can I get? How can I get what camera is that person using? Like, why is that person screaming that way? Like, how can I get that tone? How can I like get that body shape? How can I like, where do they get that shirt that prints that thing? Like having that curiosity of like, how is it that they're able to do it, like, is another great thing to understand as a creative, as you're coming up. Just always being curious in how to improve yourself and your business.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that. If people want to find you, hire you, or pick your brain some more, how can they get a hold of you?
At Worth_Mars. And then my business is at the Vid Project, and that's VID Project.
So that was my episode with Mar. Oh my goodness. Wow. I am so inspired after this episode. I just want to go out and go film things. And it's really cool that now video work for me is picking back up. I actually just did a video for a personal brand for somebody. It's actually going to be an infomercial that goes on TV, which is really cool. So very excited about that. I also, since we recorded this episode, I'm doing this intro and outro after the fact, but I have signed up for the Vid Project. I have been approved for the Vid Project, and I am very excited to be a part of what Mar is doing here locally, as well as on a national level, and one day probably on an international level. If you guys want to get in touch with him for any reason, I have put all of his social links down below for you. Definitely check out what he's got going on. And if you guys like this episode, please leave a rating and some feedback. It helps the podcast grow. It helps us find a bigger audience and get to more ears. So if you are a videographer, share this episode. If you are not a videographer, but you listened all the way to the end of this, share this video, share this podcast with somebody that is a videographer that could use a podcast like this. But other than that, guys, I will talk to you next Monday at 7 a.m. PST for another episode of Project Freelance. Thank you for listening. Stay strong, keep enduring, go out and go create something.